from that moment, it's been learning process of dying to myself and just being like, but this is his message, is when you learn to die to yourself, you're not worthy of being his disciple unless you die to yourself, your desires, what you deserve, what's good for you, your plans. Said and I had no plans, and we had no money, but God has reached 196 nations with the gospel. God has reached over 50 million Iranians with the gospel of Jesus. God has reached ambassadors. I've had private meetings with government ambassadors, with people, influential people. A couple of weeks ago, I met with Donald Trump, and just, a lot of senators and congressmen and people I would have never thought. But I didn't plan it. To be honest, if there's a secret in it, in anything, is God was just teaching after years of hard marriage and hard raising the kids, and God was finally teaching me to die to myself. And that's when he stepped in, when he taught me by his grace to step back and say, I'm not going to travel. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to die to my flesh. I'm not going to say, Lord, why did you do this? I deserve better. I'm your daughter. Look what I did in Iran. Look at all those house churches. Look. When I just got over myself and I said, I don't care if I go up there and people say, you're stinky. Why did you come in your travel clothes? Who do you think you are? Some people have said, you think you're going to have your 15 minutes of fame? I'm like, I'm not trying to be famous. Trust me, But people just say I hope your husband rots in that prison. People have said a lot of rude things. But I've had to just get over myself and not be like every fiery dart and be crying and sad. And this is why I want to finish with this verse. So I want to leave you with, if I have a few jewels to give you through this trial. One is learning to be his disciple through denying of self, which is very painful, and carrying his cross. And it's just the message of the cross. I've always thought about the message of the cross. That's all Jesus is about. But then I forget, as his disciples, we don't learn that in this culture. We're told, run away from the cross. Do what's good for you. Do what makes you happy. Live where it makes you happy. Move away from the relationship that makes you sad. Don't let him treat you like that. Don't let her treat you like that. You need to. Our culture doesn't teach the cross. And that's exactly what we have to be defined by. Is our life defined by the cross? Or do people look at our life and they say, the cross, like we do with Jesus? Like we say, okay, if I have to define one thing about Jesus, it's the cross. Do people say that about us, or do they say we're fleshy? And the last thing I want to leave you with, so one of it is the Luke 9:23-24. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever desires, do you desire to follow Jesus, or do you desire to save your life? You will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. And so what's your desire? To follow Christ or to save your life and have a life? And the last thing is what I started with. It's just one of my favorite verses during this season. All of us have a thorn in the flesh, something that's hurting us, a loved one who's sick, our own sicknesses, uncertainties. When Said was taken, my future became all of a sudden uncertain. I didn't know I lived with my parents. I didn't know how we would carry on. I didn't know anything. I would pick up the phone and try to talk to Said about an issue. Later, another time when Pastor Brian allows me to come back, if he does ever again, I want to, our love story. Said was my first boyfriend. He was my, and picking up the phone and trying to talk to my best friend and realizing he's not going to answer the phone. He's not on the other line. And so all of us, I realize as I've traveled, all of us carry thorns, our own sicknesses, our own issues. But Paul in 2 Corinthians, I have to leave you with this because it's been my favorite. In 2 Corinthians 12:8-10, Paul says, concerning these things, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times it might depart from me. And he said to me, and he's talking about the thorn in the flesh, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. And then Paul says something that has always confused me, but it makes sense. Therefore, most gladly will I rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasures in going to Hawaii and drinking some nice drink. No. Pleasure. What do you take pleasure in? What is Paul taking pleasure in? I just never made sense to me. How could you take pleasure in infirmities, in reproach, when people ridicule you, in need, when you're needy emotionally, financially, when in persecution, in distress? Like, distress, that word in itself brings me distress. For Christ's sake, for when I am weak, then I am strong. And so I think God wants us to carry our cross, but to learn to enjoy the trials, because those trials really show us how weak we are, and we can step into the strength of God. And so I just want to encourage you to do that, because, and I hope you look at a girl from Boise, Idaho, who, I didn't go to Bible school. I went to a very liberal college, so my mind should be a little messed up that way. A lot of the things I was taught was probably anti-Bible. You know, I can't say I'm a great scholar or teacher. I was supposed to go to medical school. My brother ended up becoming a doctor, getting a doctorate in quantum physics, and I ended up being a missionary, you know. So